We are entering a new era. That's right. And with Vice President J.D. Vance, they have already. That's right. This new White House has already shown its resolve. It's one of his first official acts. President Trump just freed and pardoned nearly 24 wrongfully imprisoned pro-life activists.
Even Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made an appearance along with his wife and children.
We were told since Dobbs by people, political consultants, pundits, many people that are more establishment Republicans, that standing for the right to life was somehow terrible politics, you wouldn't get elected, all this other stuff. Well, I can tell you I'm proof that that's not true, because when Dobbs was overturned, I ran on a pro-life platform on the Heartbeat Protection Act, and I won the largest victory that any Republican has ever won in the history of the state of Florida. And I can report to you now, years later, not one single member of the Florida legislature has been defeated for voting for Florida's Heartbeat Protection Act. Not one has been defeated as a result of that.
More coverage next hour. We also have information about the March for Life on AFN.net. President Trump has visited western North Carolina, where cleaning up after Hurricane Helene has proven to be a slow process, and the president blames the prior administration. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal has more.
President Trump met with state and local elected and emergency officials in Asheville. He said he knows there are still people without running water outside the city and that the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do more to make up for lost time here.
FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away.
He would not commit to a timeline on ending FEMA, but said in general, governors should be able to handle emergency responses in their own states. In North Carolina, 104 people were killed in Hurricane Helene. 73,000 homes and buildings were damaged or destroyed.
A memo issued by the Department of Homeland Security reveals immigration officials can enforce removal of migrants granted humanitarian parole by their previous administration. Fox's Evan Brown has this story.
Deportations are underway now that the Trump administration policies are in effect. Hundreds of illegal migrants, also wanted for violent crimes, are being apprehended and made to leave the U.S., but a memo obtained by Fox News shows that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, are now permitted to review cases of individuals released into the U.S. interior under the Biden-era expansion of humanitarian parole. The memo clarifies that 1.5 million migrants in this category, or those present in the country for less than 2 years who have not claimed asylum, can be deported.
In other news today, United Healthcare has announced a new chief executive officer, filling in the spot after Brian Thompson was shot and killed in Manhattan. Stripe accidentally sent images of a cartoon duck to laid-off employees, and the Las Vegas Raiders are reportedly in talks to hire Pete Carroll as their next head football coach. Find more news on AFN.net.
Streaming.afa.net has now become AFA Stream, and you can find it at stream.afa.net. You see, we removed the letters ing. Our experts have determined that eliminating those 3 keystrokes, multiplied over hundreds of thousands of AFA Stream visits, could reduce the national debt and maybe increase the gross domestic product. AFA Stream, formerly streaming.afa.net. Improvements to the economy are purely theoretical. We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to The Core here on American Family Radio. Glad to have you with us on the program. It's our Friday edition here on AFR. Once again, I'm Walker Wildman. The show's hosted each week by myself and Rick Green, and we're live today. By the way, I had a great dinner yesterday evening in Little Rock, Arkansas. We drove over for the evening, had a dinner with a couple dozen of our financial supporters and listeners in the Little Rock area. So I enjoyed being with each and every one of you, and good to fellowship with those who listen and financially support our ministry and our work. Busy news week. Why aren't we surprised, right? Only 4 days into the Trump administration, and there's more news to cover than we have time for. We're going to do our best for this episode of the program. Hey, just a reminder, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we would love to have you as a subscriber to the podcast. And you may ask, well, what's the benefit for me if I subscribe to the podcast? Well, you get to listen to the program at your convenience. That's a pretty good benefit, right? Not only do you, not just, while you're in the vehicle or at home listening to the FM radio, but you can actually listen to this program whenever you want and at your pace. So that's one benefit. And then secondly, you can go back and look at past shows, listen to past episodes. So there's a lot of benefits there to subscribing to the podcast. So go there and check that out. At wherever you listen to podcasts, all the various platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, et cetera, you can click at the core and click the subscribe button, and we'll be queued up in your library each and every day. Well, let's turn our attention to the scripture. We're finishing up Psalm 145, and I want to point out verse 4 today. Verse 3 and 4, great is the Lord and highly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. So the writer here, this is David, he describes the Lord's greatness as being unsearchable, meaning that even man, is limited on our grasping of the Lord's power and greatness. And then secondly, in verse 4, one generation shall praise your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. So that's highlighting the significance and importance of passing on the word of the Lord to future generations, and passing on not just the word of the Lord, but also the blessings and the testimony of God's work in our lives to future generations. That's Parenting and Discipleship 101. So that's Psalm 145 for this week. Well, turning our attention to some of the headlines, and we try to cover everything here on the program from a biblical perspective, and we try to focus in on also our Constitution, which is rooted in biblical precepts and truth. So that's the lens in which we review all of the news that takes place in our country. Well, one story I didn't get to the other day that I wanted to get to, or at least I didn't spend enough time on it, is these absolutely delayed confirmation hearings in our nation's capital. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous. President Trump, I think he only has 2 cabinet positions, or 2 cabinet-level positions. He has John Ratcliffe and Marco Rubio, Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of State. Those are the only 2 nominees that have been approved by the Senate. At this time during Biden's presidency, at this time during Obama's presidency, Obama had nearly a dozen cabinet officials approved by the Senate. So this is, inexcusable. We knew this was going to happen because this is how the Democrats roll. This is how they operate, right? We can't be surprised, and the Senate Republicans actually ought to be ashamed of themselves that they thought that the Democrats were going to play fair and play right. They're just not going to do it. They're obstructionist. All they know how to do is destroy things. That is the Democrat Party, all right? So let's listen to Senator Tom Cotton on the Democrats consistently delaying President Trump's nominees.
The senator from Arkansas.
I ask consent to end the quorum call.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, unfortunately, we were at the point of almost having a consent agreement to have a vote on the confirmation of John Ratcliffe to be the CIA director tomorrow. Not today, not yesterday when it should have happened, but tomorrow. But the senator from Connecticut has decided to object at the last minute. I don't really understand the objection to Mr. Ratcliffe. He was confirmed by this Senate to be the Director of National Intelligence. He was fully vetted through the bipartisan process on the Senate Intelligence Committee. We voted him out yesterday on a 14-3 vote. Senator Schumer stood here yesterday and talked about how we're going to cooperate on highly qualified, capable nominees with integrity, which John Ratcliffe is. Yet the only vote we got yesterday was Senator Rubio. Now we're not going to have a vote today, and apparently we're not going to have a vote tomorrow. Which means I hope nobody's making any plans for the weekend or the evenings, because we're going to get these nominees confirmed, starting with Mr. Ratcliffe, and then moving on to Mr. Hegseth and moving on to Mr. Noem, the easy way or the hard way. We tried to cooperate with the Democrats. The cooperation has not been forthcoming. So I guess it's going to be the hard way, starting on Thursday.
Yeah, let's do it the hard way. I mean, this is what the Democrats want to do. Let's play ball. Number one, I think recess appointments are completely necessary. I think recess appointments at this juncture are required and necessary in order to give the president his cabinet. But nonetheless, if the Republicans want to play soft, they want to have a pillow fight, well, here's my recommendation. No deal with the Democrats. This is dumb. This is stupid. No deal with the Democrats. Here's what the Democrats are offering today, and the Democrats are they're insulting negotiators. Democrats are offering to shorten Pete Hegseth's time. And by the way, all these rules are 100% subjective, meaning these are rules that are put in place by the Senate themselves. They are their own enforcers of their own rules. So when the senators complain about the rules, we need 30 hours of debate. Well, that's because that's what y'all said, and y'all are in charge of the Senate. Like, y'all run your own chamber. So if you don't like requiring 30 hours of debate, then change the rules. It's absurd. It's like a referee complaining about the rules. Well, you're the referee. Change it. I digress. The Democrats are offering to shorten Pete Hegseth's. Look, let me just explain this in layman's terms. Based on the rules, Pete Hegseth's going to get a vote at 9 p.m. tonight, Eastern, which is about 6-7 hours out. Pete Hegseth, Department of Defense, Pentagon, is going to get a vote guaranteed by 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. Democrats, here's what the Democrats want. By the way, this is insulting. Here's what the Democrats want in part of their, quote, negotiating. Democrats want to shorten Pete Hegseth's time to get a vote, meaning we'll give Pete Hegseth a vote at 3 p.m. Eastern instead of 9 p.m. Eastern. But here's the caveat. Here's what they want. They want to take the whole weekend off. They want to take the whole weekend off, which we're looking at having probably 2 more nominees confirmed over the weekend, including Kristi Noem. And so this is like Republicans should be looking at the Democrats going, bro, do you think we're idiots? Like, you want me to save, quote, save 5 hours out of my day so that you can stall another 48 to 72 hours? No, we're not doing that. All right. You guys started this delay tactic, and we're going to finish it. That's what the Republicans need to say. And they need to stay in session until we get the job done. As a matter of fact, my personal opinion is that the Senate should stay in session until all of the cabinet is filled. I mean, I wouldn't even take a day. I wouldn't even take an hour off. I would sleep, eat, breathe, work at the U.S. Capitol until President Trump has all of his cabinet nominees. And if the Democrats want to squawk, if they want to whine, if they want to complain, then we can do this thing the right way and we can speed this whole thing up. And y'all can stop obstructing to every single nominee that President Trump puts forth. And this is the thing. This is why when the Democrats oppose a nominee, it's like, man, y'all oppose every nominee. We oppose Pete Hegseth. You oppose literally every nominee that Trump puts forth. The only one they haven't opposed was Rubio, but they're opposing every other one. Ratcliffe, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel. They're opposing 99% of the nominees. So it's like they have zero credibility. Zero credibility. So my message to Senate Republicans, do not accept a deal with the Democrats so that all of you can have the weekend off. No, that's not what the American people voted for. That's not what we signed up for. It's patently absurd. It's insulting. Democrats started this garbage. They're going to work through the weekend. That's what I would do. And if the Democrats don't want to show up, that's on them. We can actually expedite the process because they're not going to be there to obstruct. So Republicans got to get some backbone. And I know I've said this 100 times, but I'm going to keep saying it. Republicans got to get some backbone in the Senate. And this hiding behind the rules, I'm so fed up with it, you have no idea. The hiding behind, we're the most deliberative body. The founding fathers intended us to be slow and deliberate. No, that's not true. That's a faux. That's a falsehood. That's factually not true. The founding fathers, they designed the Senate to function and to function wisely. But that doesn't mean you have to be inefficient. And here's why I know hiding behind the Senate is the most deliberative body and it's made to, move at a slow crawl. The reason I know that that's just not true is because when they want to get things done, they get things done. And that's a fact. When it's Christmas and they've been kicking the can down the road on the spending bill and they all want to go home to their cocktail parties, what do? They suspend the rules and they vote. And they get on their airplane at DCA and they head out, all on the taxpayer dime. And they do it expeditiously. The SUVs are waiting outside. But we want to get Trump's nominees through? We need 30 hours of debate. Y'all don't debate 30 hours on anything. Y'all pass spending bills without even reading them. We need 30 hours of debate. What do y'all think? We're a bunch of morons and idiots? Actually, that's what they think we are. They think we're dumb hillbillies like J.D. Vance. We don't know how the rules work, and we don't respect the system and the institution that is the U.S. Senate. But there's a reason we don't respect it. It's because you guys are running our country into the ground, and you're failing to do your job in a wise and efficient manner, and you're making terrible decisions for our country, and then you want to hide behind the podium and act like we don't understand how the Senate works. I don't even care how the Senate works. You guys are your own police. Y'all run the rules. Y'all do what you got to do, okay? And so I'm just so fed up with this moaning and groaning and excuse making and all this high talk about how great the Senate is. They're so inefficient. They're so lazy. They're full of excuses. They basically put so many rules in place, they can't even do their jobs. But when they got to get things done, friends, when they got to get funding over to Ukraine, when we got to do some big bailouts for corporate America, when we got to fund a 1,700-page continuing resolution so everybody gets their pork and their kickbacks to their districts, we can get it done. We can suspend the rules and we can vote right now. But we want Trump's nominees? You got to wait 30 hours. 30 hours, my friends. Give me a break.
Faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Karl Marx, an emissary of evil, and Charles Spurgeon, the prince of preachers, were evangelists of diametrically opposed messages. Yet they both lived in London at the same time. In fact, when asked the name of the person he most detested, Frederick Ingalls, Marx's cohort in chaos, responded unequivocally, Spurgeon. A generation later, George Bernard Shaw, a hardcore communist, seethed in hatred for William Booth and his Salvation Army of volunteers. Time and again, robust Christian witness has been the inoculate against the proliferation of Marxist poison in society.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
You know, the new year is a great time to reconsider how we do things, like how to make things better in 2025. Like when it comes to the whole struggle of how to pay for your health care, people generally are not happy with the status quo. But there's good news. There's a much better option, and it's proven too. MediShare is refreshing. You can save thousands of dollars a year. Many save up to $500 a month, seriously. And you get to choose from a huge network of doctors and providers. And maybe the best part, and we know this from research on why people join MediShare, they love this. Instead of sending your money every month to a huge corporation that might fund all sorts of procedures or things you don't believe in, you're joining a faith-based network of people who actually care about each other. And like I said, that's refreshing. There is a better option. You don't have to do it the way you've always done it. You can make a change and start saving now. Here's the number. They're easy to talk to. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Hello, everyone. Tim Wildman here with American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, our tours for 2025, our spiritual heritage tours of Washington, D.C. and Williamsburg and Boston, they're filling up. They're halfway full now. And we've never had a response quite like this. So what I'm saying is if you want to go with us this year to either Colonial Williamsburg, which includes Jamestown and Yorktown, or Washington, D.C. and all the sites of our nation's capital, including Mount Vernon, or if you want to go with us to Boston and see the Freedom Trail and all the sites of the greater Boston area. If you want to go on these trips with us this year, it's time to check into the information and register so that you make sure you're on one of our tours, the one you want to go on, obviously. So go to the website wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com. Hope to see you on one of these in 2025.
At the Core podcast are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to the Core. Well, if you listen to the last segment, I could, I could go for another 20 minutes, and I could just rag the Senate. I've called Congress. What Congress does is they engage in the most intense pillow fight that's been known to mankind. And nobody gets hurt. Trust me, nobody gets out of there. Everybody gets out unscathed. It's all for show. Most of it, not all. Most of it's for show. All the hearings, all the circumstance, and I've had about enough of it. And I've only been covering this stuff for 10 years. Some of these folks have been in this stuff for 30 years, and I can't imagine how they still do it with a straight face. The Senate needs to get moving. That's a fact. The Senate needs to get moving. Do what you got to do to get President Trump's nominees through. Stop making excuses. That's what they need to do. On to other subjects. President Trump is doing what he told us he would do, and he's deporting expeditiously violent criminals that have entered our nation illegally, these aliens, these illegal immigrants or illegal aliens. That's a proper legal term according to federal statute. And this calling them migrants and undocumented, it's all just a bunch of brainwashing propaganda. They're illegal immigrants. They're technically illegal aliens, and they're due for deportation. And Fox News actually went on a raid with ICE. By the way, ICE is at about 600 violent criminals now that they've deported, and they're using military. They're using the Department of Defense to deport these illegal immigrants. It's a beautiful sight. The White House put out a picture this morning of C-130s and C-17s being used to deport violent illegal aliens expeditiously from the El Paso sector down to Guatemala. It's happening now, and we're just getting started. And Newsmax actually started a deportation clock, a deportation counter, which I thought was quite beautiful. But let's listen to this Fox report. Folks, listen to the type of people they're arresting. These are sick animals that they're arresting, and ICE finally has their hands untied, and they're busting down doors, and they're locking up the criminals, and they're deporting them. Clip 3.
Tonight we take you on patrol with federal agents as they begin to enforce President Trump's new mass deportation policy. Correspondent Bill Malugin has exclusive access and some amazing images. He reports tonight from Boston.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
The White House is reacting tonight to Fox News' exclusive embed with ICE deportation officers in the sanctuary city of Boston.
I'm not going back to Haiti. You feel me?
During that embed, we witnessed ICE arresting this combative Haitian man, who ICE says is a gang member with 17 criminal convictions. And he had this to say.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Vice President J.D. Vance reacting to that today, writing on X, quote, "An illegal alien with 17 criminal convictions really hates President Trump for sending him back to Haiti. He's grateful to Biden for letting him come here. I'm glad we're deporting him." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also responding, posting on X, quote, "Bye-bye."
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
Fox News witnessed ICE make a handful of arrests of other egregious criminal aliens. They include this MS-13 gang member wanted for aggravated murder in El Salvador, with an Interpol red notice out for his arrest. This Brazilian illegal alien, also with an Interpol red notice out for his arrest, locally for rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Señor, ¿cómo se llama?
This Dominican man charged locally with assault with a deadly weapon, a box cutter, and heroin trafficking. And this Guatemalan illegal alien, who ICE says is an active MS-13 gang member, facing local gun charges.
Today was a good day. Today we took several significant public safety threats out of our communities. Unfortunately, a lot were released by sanctuary policies.
And Fox News has learned after our embed with ICE Boston ended, they arrested 2 more targets, including this previously deported Honduran illegal alien, now charged with raping a victim while putting a gun in her mouth. And this Haitian national, who ICE says first flew into the U.S. in 2023 as part of former President Biden's controversial migrant flights parole program. He is now charged with sexually assaulting a victim above age 14.
Well, there you have it. That's a Fox report on Boston ICE agents deporting illegal immigrants, many of them violent and dangerous. And for the left that is currently freaking out right now, and the media doesn't. The Democrats and the media don't know what to do because they have zero power. They literally have zero power and authority over this situation, and so they're losing it. And the Democrats and the media, they're in a bad spot. Let me just tell you, they're in a bad spot. They're in the worst spot I've seen them in, and probably since I've been paying attention to politics over a decade. I've never seen the Democrats in such disarray, disorganization, and at an utter standstill than they are now. But if we want to know, like, where we get the idea of deporting illegal aliens from, well, we can just credit Hillary Clinton, because when she was running for president, not in 2015, but before that, in her multiple runs for president, she actually did a campaign speech where she said, if the alien commits a crime, well, what do we got to do? We got to deport them. No questions. Move on, deport them right now. Let's go, says Hillary Clinton. Let's listen.
So I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
Sounds like Trump. No, that's Hillary Clinton, my friends. Boy, Bobby, how the party's...
Taylor Greene right there.
Yeah, right.
Worst case is a libertarian.
Boy, how the times have changed. That was the Democrat position as of, let's say, 10, 15 years ago. But what happened? They got co-opted by the Marxists. And they realized, you know what, guys, we don't really want to transform America, which is what Obama said. He said fundamentally change America. Democrats decided after Obama, we want to destroy America. They went from fundamentally change, fundamentally transform, to destroy. And they did that like overnight. And Obama's version of change, my friends, was not going to be good under any circumstance, but Democrats moved to let's destroy America, and that's how they operate now. But Hillary Clinton, we can give her complete credit for deporting the illegal immigrants. I think President Trump should probably get her quote like plastered in all the ICE offices. And then when the media shows up, we can just say, look, we're just doing what the great Hillary Clinton told us to. We're just following the orders of Democrat Hillary Clinton. We just want to honor her. We want to do what she recommends. And we want to help her fulfill the campaign promise she never got to. So we're deporting the illegal aliens. Let's see. On shifting gears, on the FEMA situation and in North Carolina, President Trump was there this morning, and it was great to see him on the ground actually allowing the victims and those who have been affected by the hurricane and the flooding in North Carolina to be able to speak and tell their stories. This was powerful. I watched countless stories this morning about families that their livelihoods were utterly destroyed. And when you listen to their stories and you understand what Biden and the government did to them, it's quite infuriating. And we wonder why President Trump won. Because there's a lot of people in this country, a lot of hardworking Americans that follow the rules, pay their taxes, and they were done so wrong by our government and by the insurance companies too. And so President Trump had this pretty good idea, I thought, that he shared this morning about, why do we really need FEMA? And anytime we can eliminate a federal agency, I'm 100% on board. I don't care which one it is. But President Trump said, you know what, guys? Enough of this reform talk. Let's just get rid of FEMA. And this is coming from the commander-in-chief who's in charge of FEMA. All right, let's listen to clip 2.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area. And they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away. And we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state. But the state should fix this. If the state did this from the beginning, it would have been a lot better situation. I think you guys agree with that, right?
There you have it. And, it really brings, we operate under this environment of, well, this is always how it's been, right? Even though that's not really true, but at least for our lifetimes, right? This is always how it's been. FEMA's always been a thing. Well, not really. FEMA hasn't always been a thing. Along with 90% of our agencies that exist, they haven't been a thing. But just because that's how it is now doesn't mean that's how it needs to be. And when you look at FEMA and you actually think about it, President Trump's right. And I don't know why more people don't think like him. Maybe it's an art that we've lost in our country. But FEMA they're redundant. FEMA, they're just like the middleman between the federal dollar, federal aid, and then the state agencies, the state and local agencies. And there's no reason that the federal government ought to be in that business when you think about it. And it's one thing if they did their job spectacularly and everybody raved about FEMA, but that's not the case. All right? FEMA goes in and they have money, right? They have the purse. And everybody's got to fill out all this paperwork, meet all these qualifications, deal with all these bureaucracies and bureaucrats to get aid. And FEMA goes in, and half the time they don't even know what they're doing or where they are. Because FEMA's getting sent all over the country. They can't be experts in everything everywhere. So we could eliminate an entire agency and just block grant the money to the states and tell tell the states what the money is going to be used for. All right? And I don't want to hear anything about, well, what about fraud? What about states misusing the money? Folks, that's being done now. Okay? FEMA's misusing the money. So don't act like we've got it all together. All right? Everything's broken. So don't start like saying, well, what about this? What about that? No, clearly what we're doing is not working. FEMA is a wasted agency, and we need to block grant the money to the states. And we can put all the strings attached and the stipulations, and here's how much people qualify for, and here's the what they have to meet in order to get the money. I mean, you can do all that. Anytime you have a mass federal program, though, you're going to have fraud. So I think the states need to handle it. And if states are misusing it, then that can be handled. And this is not guaranteed money, okay? So if states are misusing the aid money, well, we just won't give them any more money. All right, there's checks and balances everywhere, all right? Plenty of it. And one story I heard, which is absolutely infuriating, is that if you had flood insurance, meaning like you were being a responsible adult in a flood zone in North Carolina, well, you don't qualify for FEMA. What? This is like with welfare. When you get married, you don't qualify for welfare. What? We're incentivizing not having insurance here. Because, like, if you're a resident and you know, look, if I don't have flood insurance, FEMA's going to cover me. So why would I pay for flood insurance? So you're disincentivizing people to actually have flood insurance because you tell them, well, you can't get FEMA aid if you've got flood insurance. Even though the flood insurance isn't going to cover nearly the value of the assets that you lost, not to mention all the out-of-pocket expenses in the interim. I mean, folks, these people are experiencing just a disaster. They've lost everything. They've lost everything. And this gentleman's sharing his story with President Trump, and President Trump actually gives people the microphone and lets them tell their stories. That's how we know this information. Biden goes in and does a photo op and doesn't let anybody talk. Actually, it wasn't even Biden, it was Harris. But this guy and his wife and his daughter lost their entire house. It's all gone. It floated off. And his family lost their entire farm, tractor, and everything. And they have flood insurance, thankfully. But the insurance company fired the first adjuster because he gave, in the insurance company's opinion, a too high of an estimate. So what does the insurance company do? Well, they fire the adjuster. Well, then they bring in the new adjuster, and then they lowball the family. And now it's all hung up with paperwork. And now they're having to hire lawyers. And FEMA says, no, we're not going to help you because you've already got insurance. So there's just a lot of things wrong with our federal government more broadly. But I'm really liking Trump's idea of ditching FEMA. It's sounding like a pretty good idea. Block grant the money to the states on an as-needed basis. You put your stipulations on how the money's to be used. Make sure it goes to the people, right? It's not wasted or corrupted like they do in California and New York. And then let the states and local municipalities handle distributing the aid. They know what's going on the ground. We'll be back.
When you see trash in the media, submit it to 1millionmoms.com. Over the years, 1 million moms and our partners have improved advertising choices of programmers and content seen on TV. Just like you, 1 million moms want to protect little eyes and ears from the trash that could hurt them. So when you see trash in the media, visit 1millionmoms.com. Scroll down and look for the Submit Trash button.
Take it away.
1millionmoms.com.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously.
The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity's support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Stern. Stand by for news and commentary next. An Indiana sheriff has been ordered to remove a cross from his patrol car. A concerned citizen got triggered after seeing the cross decal on the rear windshield of a Hancock County sheriff's car. The Freedom from Religion Foundation said the presence of that cross on the patrol car shatters trust between officers and the public. Come on. They fired off a letter demanding that the decal be removed, and sure enough, the sheriff's department immediately removed the cross, even provided photographic evidence to the atheist group. Now, the out-of-town atheists were no doubt giddy over their victory, but there's one problem. It's not illegal for a cop or a sheriff's deputy to display a Christian message or a cross on their patrol cars. You know, it's really too bad the Hancock County Sheriff's Office fell for the bluff. Don't be bullied by atheist America. Come on. I'm Todd Stearns.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Walker Wildman.
Welcome to The Core. It's our last segment underway here on American Family Radio. You know, insurance, property insurance in a couple states is a real problem, and it's gone up in every state under Biden thanks to his inflation. But if you live in Florida or California and maybe now North Carolina, and maybe there's probably a few other states that are having issues, this property insurance, it's a problem. And a lot of carriers are just backing out completely. Others are hiking their premiums up astronomically, and I feel really bad for people that are having to deal with that. Chris Woodward's with us, and Chris, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that insurance it's a huge concern. You know, you can't get a house if you don't have insurance. You can't rebuild your house if you don't have insurance. We're in a world of hurt.
And Bobby, some of these in L.A., some of the insurance companies pulled out even before the wildfires.
That's correct. And, you know, you don't hear about it as much. Obviously, you see the news, you know, hurricanes and so forth. But from there's a lot of rental property on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And a lot of that has come to a screeching halt simply because the insurance has become too prohibitive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one thing, this is an idea, and I haven't fully vetted this, but you know, these insurance companies, number one, they're pretty regulated. Similar to health insurance companies, they're pretty regulated. But you know, these insurance companies they're paying, you know, somewhere between a 15 to 20% corporate income tax, which goes to Washington, D.C., so they can spend the money on all their pork. But, you know, we've got to basically make it easy to be an insurance company because over-regulation, maybe not in Florida, but definitely in California, all the red tape, Chris, all the regulation, then you bring in the mismanagement of the forest and the wildfires. All of that is a recipe for disaster for insurance companies. So whatever we got to do in America, we've got to really make it easy and affordable to operate an insurance company.
Yes, I think that's one of the lessons we have learned from California. This was about a week or two ago. I heard people say that the fact that State Farm, for example, had canceled or done away with some policies in L.A. half a year ago should have been a warning to Newsom and others that, hey, you got problems coming. And it's more evidence that, government really dropped the ball here, state and local government in California. And so if you're Connecticut or you're Florida, Mississippi, one of these places where you have a lot of severe weather, you need to be paying attention to and learning from what California failed to do, so that way we're not the next state next year when something bad happens.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, today is the March for Life.
Yes.
Give us a little background of there. We do have a clip of, let's see, this is actually President Trump and his part of his speech to the March for Life. But go ahead and set this up.
Yeah, thousands of people showed up for this. A couple of days after we moved the inauguration festivities indoors because of the weather, thousands of people showed up in very similar conditions to speak for the unborn and promote policies that will help the mother in a pregnancy situation here. So thousands of people showed up. A lot of legislators, specifically Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Governor Ron DeSantis was there. I thought that was funny. It may be the first time the governor of Florida has ever left and found similar, if not warmer, weather in D.C. versus Florida.
Yeah, that was like a once in a century.
Oh, yeah.
storm.
I mean, he'll never. His kids might
I think
be
18. Well, as far as snow totals, in one of the areas, I think it was in the Panhandle. We're talking about the snowstorm in Florida. The last time they got even near that level of snow was like in 1858, and it was half the amount that they got the other day.
Yes.
So it was like once in a 200 or 300 year
Very, very odd week. I saw a guy snow skiing down Bourbon Street this week in New Orleans, and I'm pretty sure alcohol was not involved. That was just how he was trying to get to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so President Trump did appear at the March for Life. He spoke in a video message, not because he didn't want to be there. He's a little busy. He was in North Carolina earlier today to meet with Hurricane Helene victims. Now he's en route in Air Force One to California to talk to people about the Los Angeles fires.
Yeah, this clip I have is actually President Trump leaving the White House, and he's interacting with reporters. But I wanted to get this clip because he's asked about pardoning pro-lifers, and he talks about the March for Life. So let's listen to clip 5.
I did a big clip for the March for Life, and we look forward to seeing it. I'm going to be watching it, and J.D. Vance, our vice president, is there, and he's going to be representing us very well, taking place in a little while. And other than being a little bit cold, it's a beautiful day.
How will your administration protect pro-life Americans?
We're all for it. In fact, as you know, I just signed a pardon, and in the pardon we released 23 people that were unjustly put in having to do with pro-life. And they will be released, and they'll be out very shortly. It was disgraceful what happened. That was a persecution.
That's President Trump talking about the March for Life. Vice President J.D. Vance, almost says Senator J.D. Vance. Vice President J.D. Vance speaking there, actually already spoken, and then talking about pardoning pro-lifers. Chris, the pardoning of these pro-lifers was a big deal.
It was, and certainly something that AFA, American Family Association, and other ministries were calling on the new administration to do. AFA, for example, put out an action alert in recent days encouraging people to ask President Trump to pardon these people. Some were wondering why he didn't do it earlier this week, like immediately after he took office. I thought maybe he was waiting for today, being March for Life Day, to make that announcement, but he did make that officially known yesterday. And now, if I'm correct here, AFA is now asking people to actually tell the president, "Thank you for doing this kind of thing." So he spoke today in a video message at March for Life. He talked about how his previous time in office put judges in place, and they overturned Roe, but there's still a lot of stuff to be done here. And when it comes to I did it again. Vice President J.D. Vance, he took the stage and spoke live to the crowd in what is really his first public appearance as vice president. And Mr. Vance talked about how he and his wife have been blessed with children. Children are a blessing. These are his actual words. And he went on to say that he wants to see more children born in the United States. And I got to tell you, it's a completely different environment from where we were just a month ago.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden was not a pro-choice president. Joe Biden was a pro-abortion president.
Correct.
And that shows you how far even the Democrats have gone from like the safe, legal, and rare Democrats like Bill Clinton in 1990, whatever, to now just, completely pro-abortion.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be the moderate in 2020 when he was running, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it
Moderate
has been
in
a
air
very
quotes.
very big day today in Washington, D.C. They're actually still marching right now.
Yeah, well, look, I'm glad J.D. Vance, the vice president, went to the March for Life. And look, anybody who questioned Vice President Vance and President Trump's pro-life credentials, look, I know that President Trump isn't the strongest on this issue. That's clear. You don't have to, study long to understand that. But when you look at what the president controls and what he actually can influence, he's very good on this issue. Sending the vice president there, the second highest officer in the land, is a big deal. Freeing the FACE Act victims is a big deal. I think people overestimate what the commander-in-chief, what the president can do as far as changing abortion policy in our country. The pro-abortion Department of Health and Human Services website was taken down on Inauguration Day. So, and RFK Jr., I think he understands that he's going to have to fall on the pro-life side on this issue because that's where the vast majority of Republicans are. So I just think President Trump is doing a good job. And states, this is largely in the control of states now. It is. Can Congress weigh in on this? Absolutely. Can we litigate this under constitutional grounds? Yeah, probably so. That hasn't been done yet, but it can be done. But from a what can Trump do about abortion? He does a lot of good things.
Yes.
And I think
he's definitely leading from the front on this topic.
He is, absolutely. He's not shying away from it. Doing a video message, sending Vance there, that's all I need to know. That he's not embarrassed about the pro-lifers. He's not shying away from it. But he's also saying, on the other hand, look, this is a state issue. At this point, post-Roe, it's a state issue. So I'm the president. I'm not the governor. And so states are going to have to work this out.
Yes, and a number of legislators, including those on AFR programs this week, have said, look, it's Supreme Court overturned Roe. That's great, but we still have a lot of work to do. So
and that's true.
Don't go home and Netflix and chill. You need to still speak up for babies.
Absolutely, that's true. That's a fact right there. Chris, the economy is, I think the markets are in a pretty good place. Interest rates are still too high. Mortgage rates and home prices together are still too high. I think if prices come down, you can leave rates higher, but both of them are high. Pricing is unaffordable. I read a stat earlier where I think 80+% of realtors, basically 2024 was a bad year if you're a realtor.
Yeah, terrible, no good, very bad year. Even sellers. I saw a headline today from MarketWatch that said 2024 was pretty much the worst year for buyers and sellers in 30 years.
Since 95.
And that, as we talk about on this show often, if you're not selling homes, that trickles down to a whole bunch of other things beyond just real estate. There's jobs involved there.
It was worse than 08, 09.
Yeah, it was terrible. And hopefully it will be much better. We're having a better conversation about that in January of 2026. But yeah, it's not good at all. And I think this is one of those things where people are going to have to be patient. The media, mainstream media, will definitely do whatever they can to try to convince you this time in February or March that things are still bad and Trump said it was going to be good and you can't vote this person back in, which is
time.
It's ridiculous. You're going to have to be patient. We're looking at going into the midterm election year before we really start to see positive things in the way of the economy. Although Trump and some of his supporters do want us to see the possibility that they could get something done much sooner.
Yeah, we got to renew the tax cuts, and I know even Vice President Vance and others have talked about increasing the child tax credit to incentivize people having children, which is a really big problem that Elon Musk talks about, and it's going to become more evident over the years when our birth rate is well below 2%. But, yeah, the housing market's just a dumpster fire, and I think it should have gotten more coverage than it did last year. Because to your point, it was the worst market from an affordability perspective and a transaction perspective in 30 years, going back to 1995. And the reason is because of inflation. I mean, we can thank it all on Biden and their trillions of dollars that they printed and spent because the prices are astronomical. I know we've talked about this before, but you know, it's one thing to have a 6-7% mortgage rates, and many people say, well, that's not bad. But then you tack that on to a house that is extremely overpriced. A house that was maybe $200,000 10 years ago, now it's $350,000, $400,000. Folks, that's the problem. The affordability is the problem.
Yeah, there's a house near where I live. I mentioned this, I think, the last time I was on the show. It's probably from the 70s. If I had to guess, and it was on the market for a very long time. And I just recently noticed the sign's no longer there, and there were cars in the driveway. But I can tell you that's one example of many, far too many to count, of just properties just sitting there, and not doing anything, which means that realtors not making money off a sale, which means furniture sellers are not making as much money.
Well, when they want to talk about inflation's at 3%. It's like, no, it's not. It's at like 20% or 10% annually. I'm talking because, for example, and I'm just throwing out anecdotal numbers here, but in Mississippi, probably let's say a decade to 15 years ago, you could build a nice house for about $85 a square foot. If you wanted to, go a little fancier on your countertops, you could go up to $95 or $100 a square foot. But $85 a square foot 15 years ago was a nice house in Mississippi. These houses are going for $150 to $180 a square foot.
Yes.
Some of them are up at $200 a square foot. And it's like, that's double. That's double what it was. And they want to tell me inflation's 2.7% on the housing market. 2.9 last year, they said. And I'm like, no, you do the math on a decade, on 10 years, and it's doubled. That's at least 8 to 10% a year in inflation.
Yeah, at Mississippi income levels, which if you haven't Googled it
have not
lately,
kept up.
No. I mean, if you Google what's the median income in Mississippi, the average person in the Magnolia State, which I was born here, and if the good Lord says so, I'll die here and be happy with it. But we're not, we can't keep doing that.
Right. No, it's unsustainable.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the globalists, they want us to all live in our little 500 square foot apartment. And use our eco-friendly toilet that doesn't flush properly. But we've got to make buying home ownership cool again.
Yes.
Because folks, that people don't understand this. They think it's this, subjective. Well, do I want to rent or do I want to buy? Whatever I want to do. It's America, and there's some truth to that. But there's also the truth that historically, the way middle and lower income families build wealth is through assets. And one of those assets is home ownership. So we've got to incentivize home ownership again. We've got to make it affordable for young families to get into homes because that's how they build generational wealth and opportunity. So home ownership needs to be made cool again. Renting for 70 years and not owning anything when you die should not be this noble, virtuous thing that we all aspire to be. And aspire to have. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
All right, folks, at the core, we'll see you next week.